Welcome, friends. This episode feels different, and if I'm honest, a little scary and a little sacred. Today marks the 100th episode of Verses and Visions Creative Conversation. And before I say anything else, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening, for sharing episodes, for sending messages that said this matters to me. When I started this podcast, I didn't have a master plan. I just had an edge and a belief that stories matter and that God works through ordinary people who are willing to show up. Over the last 100 episodes, we've heard from artists, writers, leaders, and dream makers about walking their callings. Sometimes confidently, sometimes uncertainly, but always courageously. This has reflected my own journey, which brings me to today. I'm standing in a transition. Not one with a clear roadmap or tiny language. I don't know what's next yet, and I don't know whether this pause is temporary or permanent. But what I do know is that God is inviting me to slow down, to listen, and to trust that clarity comes after obedience and not before. I'm naming this as a holy pause. Not a dramatic ending, but a moment to breathe, to reflect, and honor what has been, while leaving space for what may come. This pause isn't about walking away, it's about making room. I'm not stepping away from creativity, faith, or community. So if you'd like to continue this journey with me, I'd love for you to follow me over at Call to Create. That's where you'll find me showing up consistently in the next season. Welcome to Verses and Visions Creative Conversations, where creativity and purpose meet to inspire and uplift. I'm Cassidy Beck, your host, here to explore the stories of artists, dreamers, and changemakers who are walking in faith and using their unique gifts to make a difference. Each episode is a reminder that your vision, paired with God's purpose, can transform the world around you. This is a very celebratory episode. This is our 100th episode, and I can't think of a better guest to celebrate this moment with than Pablo Smith. Pablo, welcome.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. I'm so happy to be here.
Pablo Smith has been in the animation industry for over 20 years, working on projects for studios like Disney, Nickelodeon, and DreamWorks. He and his wife, Kristen, have been married for 26 years, and they have 5 children. He loves movies, books, and reading with his family and winter weather. When he saw his youngest daughter struggling with her motivation to study the scriptures, Pablo decided to create the Book of Mormon, a graphic novel. This series of graphic novels is designed to bring scriptures to life in a modern way and help people like the scriptures unto themselves. Volume 1 is being published by Cedar Fort Publishing and will be released around September of this year. So what an incredible idea and venture that you're working on. I think, Pablo, first question I want to ask you, tell me a movie, a book, a piece of art, something that has inspired you recently and why you're finding inspiration from that.
But the one movie that I really like Christopher Nolan as a director, and I really like Interstellar, which is like a space movie that has to do with time. I love the way he storytells, and when I watch it, I have a desire to create something, and that's the problem with me, I guess, with watching movies is if I watch something that does inspire me, when I'm done, I want to get to work, right? And so if I watch it at night, I can't sleep for like the next 2 hours, and I have to do something because my mind's always. It just makes me want to like, oh, I want to do something like that makes me that causes people to think, or to feel, or to emote, and so it's yeah, that one I just love the characters, the relationship between the father daughter trying to reach through time and space to like connect with each other. Yeah, that's one of them. So.
So I'm so curious about that. You mentioned Interstellar. So was it like the color palette? Was the relationship? Was it the storytelling?
So when I was younger, people would ask me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" It was always based on the last movie that I saw. And so the movie that made me want to become an animator was The Little Mermaid. And when I saw that one, I was like, I have to do this. If I see a movie that's not like that I, that didn't touch me or move me in any way, I forget it really easy. It's boring. I move on. But if there's a movie that whether it's like the editing, like to get into, I guess, kind of to break it down a little bit, like it's mostly like the story or the way they tell the story. I guess it could be the color palette, but it's mostly the relationship between the characters or something that really brings out the connection in me, that something that helps me to relate to what I'm seeing on screen, or something that inspires me. Or my family, like, if I see the way, like, my children respond, I have this, it's a quirk, I guess, that I have to see a movie for the first time by myself. I guess I feel the feelings of the people around me, and I don't wanna be influenced by, someone in my family thinking it's boring, or my kids having to go to the bathroom in the middle of it, or whatever it is. So I feel like if I'm gonna watch a movie, I have to watch it for the first time by myself so I can fully take it in. And then after that, I'll watch it with other people. So it's kinda like I wanna fully take in everything that is happening and going on. When it's done, I wanna go through it and dissect it and take it apart and break it down, what happened and why was it that I felt this. And that was one of the things that when I saw The Little Mermaid, I wrote a letter to Disney, and that was one of the things that they wrote back and said, "Watch as many movies as you can, watch as much television as you can, go to plays, and then analyze it. Like, when you're done, like, why did the audience react this way? Or why was this not considered a good movie? What makes a good actor? What makes a bad actor?" And just really break it down. And so I started doing that from the moment I got that letter, and I think that's just carried on. But it's always been movies have always been something that have just really fascinated and have really affected me deeply.
I am curious who that letter that you wrote to Disney, I feel like I can infer that you were like, "I love this. How do I get in the field?" Is that kind of the idea behind the letter that you wrote to them?
Yes, yeah. So I saw The Little Mermaid in school. That our teacher showed it to us last day of school, and I went home and asked my dad, how do you do this for a living?"
How old
And
are you at this time?
I was a freshman in high school, so yeah, around 14, 15, something like that. And there was no internet back then, so I just got the address to Disney Studios and wrote a letter and said I just saw Little Mermaid. Is it possible to do what you did, and how do you do it? And then I sent it, and about, like, 2 weeks later, I got a 4-page response of what I need to do to work in the animation industry. And that's changed a little bit now because of CG and stuff like that, but it's basically the same thing. So, anyway, I did all of that stuff, which was like, take a sketchbook everywhere you go, draw, try to capture, like, draw everything, draw all the time, draw people, and try to capture when you draw people at the mall, on the bus, wherever you are at school, try to capture their emotion when you draw them. Don't just draw them. Like, so if someone's just sitting down, like, how are they sitting down? Like, by your sketch, can you see, like, their body language? Are they sad? Are they happy? Are they excited? It's not just drawing, it's drawing emotion. And so that's why they encouraged me to take acting classes and, again, watch movies and stuff like that, because when I'm animating, I'm acting, right, with a pencil. And so, yeah, I know that, for my parents, or for my mom, I guess, mostly, watching as much television as I could was not something she immediately was okay with, because if I come home from school with homework and cartoons are on, like, about 2 hours after school. So I'd come home and I'd wanna watch the cartoons. When I first saw The Little Mermaid, and I've explained this before, that, like, it felt like a monster woke up inside of me. Like I wanted this more than I wanted anything else ever in my life up to that point. And so if friends came over to play, "Hey, can Pablo play?" I would rather just I wanted to watch. I wanted to focus. And again, it's like, "Hey, well, can I watch cartoons with you?" It's like, I don't want you to get in the way of me watching cartoons. And I would study, I would think about it, I would analyze it, I would write down, I would draw. As a parent now, it's I don't want my children watching TV as much as I do, and that would cause problems when the kids would be, "Why can dad watch TV and we can't?" And I was like, "Guys, this is for work, right? I'm watching cartoon because I need." to keep up with what's happening in the industry.
So, after 2 decades you've been in this industry, tell me how you've kept your creativity alive, while also, like, evolving.
I think the key to that is having personal projects. If I go to work, I'm hired to work on somebody else's vision, someone else's idea, and so I can definitely be creative while doing that, but I feel like I've only had, like, maybe 2 jobs out of all the jobs I've had. Everything else has been, like, there's deadlines, there's budget issues, there's whatever it is that's causing we have to get this out because the network needs it to put it on it goes on air at this time or it's being released on this day. So sometimes I do feel like working at a studio could stifle what if I was wanted to do like, "Oh, I have this idea," and it's like, "We don't have the time or the money for this." And so I'd go home and continue to work. Like, I feel like I have this desire to, like, be creative, and so if I can't do it at work, I go home and I have personal projects and work on those and do it how I wanna do it and do it exactly the way I want to do it, and that helps me to stay creative, I feel.
So I feel like you've worked at Disney, you've worked at Nickelodeon, you worked at DreamWorks, so you've seen a lot of different ways of storytelling. Is there one approach that you feel like resonates a little bit more than others with who you are?
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess Nickelodeon was a little more just kinda slapstick crazy, right? Like, I worked on SpongeBob, I worked on Ninja Turtles and other shows, but Nickelodeon's vibe was and they d on purpose, tried to not be like Disney so they don't have to compete in the same way, so Nickelodeon was a little more slapstick crazy, and although that was really fun and it was funny, I always felt like animation was one of my favorite Disney movies. Some of my favorite Disney movies are like Aladdin, Tarzan, and I really liked Tarzan because I feel like it was like such a different movie. Like it wasn't just trying to be funny. It was like this more of a serious type story. And I thought, wow, you could really do a lot in animation. And I felt like that movie connected with me more than, just pure like Tom and Jerry or Bugs Bunny, right? Like those are funny and you laugh and you love laughing, but there's also like a way to like kind of get another message across. And actually Tarzan was one of the movies where when I started making the graphic novel of Book of Mormon that I thought a lot about because I was like, they were able to pass a serious storyline in such a cool and engaging way that I thought, I would like to try something. I would like to try doing the Book of Mormon, kind of like Tarzan, where it's like really engaging to people of all ages, like older ages, not just for children, but it's definitely I feel like the Book of Mormon is definitely a serious story that has like a lot of fun that's abridged out of it, but it's still in there. And so it was kind of like a way to bring that to life in that way.
So take us back to that moment. You mentioned your daughter struggling with, I guess, motivation to read the scriptures. So in that moment, how did you feel and what made you think I can create something to help?
It's kind of the idea for the Book of Mormon actually, I had it like about like a few years before that moment. And I had thought about trying to do like an animated film or series with it, but I was like that would be very expensive and there's no way I begin a studio. And then there's no way I could hire like a lot of people who would want to work on the Book of Mormon, right? Like in the industry, it's not, it can be tricky being a member of the church, right? So I was like, oh, forget about it. And I thought at that point I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could tell it from Mormon's perspective, where he's trying to raise his son, Moroni. He's trying to lead the army. He's trying to abridge the scriptures that were commanded him. He knows what's about to happen, that the people are going to become extinct. And he's trying to keep up his spirits. And the whole time he's trying to abridge it. I thought, well, what if as he's abridging, like he reads the story and then he goes into the story, and then at the end of the story, we pull out, and he kind of gathers strength from the story. So that was my idea, but I threw it to the side. And then when I saw my daughter, she would read like Big Nate and other like Diary of a Wimpy Kid and the Babysitters Club and stuff, and I was like, I bet you I could do it because I feel like having worked in the industry, working like on SpongeBob, all we did was, like, trying to was figure out how to make something as funny as we possibly could, and it didn't always work, right? But it was just trying to make it funny, but also, like, at Disney, where you try to make it a little more heartfelt, so I just felt like, "Yeah, I think I could do this," and, just decided to start doing it and worked on it, decided to put it up on YouTube just for my kids to watch, but then other people found it and started watching it, and then they kinda grew into a little bit more.
So I'm curious, you decided the graphic novel. What made that format feel like the right bridge between scripture and engagement?
So I felt like if I couldn't do a fully animated production, then a graphic novel is kind of the next. It had to be something I could do on my own without like a bunch of help, because I didn't know how many people would want to jump in on something to work on something for free because I couldn't pay anybody. And then I used to read graphic novels as a kid, as a teenager, and I loved, again, it was like storytelling just in a different format, and then when you make a movie or a TV show, it kinda starts off with storyboards, which is kinda like a little comic book, right? Every frame is boarded out, and, so I thought, "Well, why not do it that way? It'll go a lot faster, and I could do it by myself, and I think it could still be engaging enough for people to read."
So I'm curious, during this project, was there ever a time where you were thinking, I don't know if I could keep doing this, or just like feeling that self doubt? And if so, what helped you push through?
Yeah, it was basically, I felt that every single day, actually. I don't sometimes I sit down and I just think like, "What the heck am I doing? Like, does this even matter to anybody?" Like, I'm just doing something that's for my kids, and, they'll watch it on Sundays, right? I put it up on YouTube, and they watch it on Sundays, and that was kinda like the whole point, because it was too expensive for me to publish it myself, just, for my kids to have it. I just thought, like, I'll just put it up on YouTube, they watch it, and then, as more people started watching it, I felt like, "Oh, well, maybe this is something that I could put more effort into." So, the artwork at the beginning is not as good as the artwork at the end, and then but as I would do it, I would just feel like, I mean, am I gonna do the whole Book of Mormon? Like, that would just take forever, like, I'd be dead before I could even make it through Alma, and, I would tell my wife so often, like, "I think I'm gonna take a break," and I would take breaks, but just push through because, like I said, having personal projects is a way to, like, keep creative, so sometimes I would just sit down and do it just because I had nothing else to do, right? And I wanted to be creative. But then what's really helped is seeing the comments that people make on YouTube or emails that I get from people that say things like, "Hey, my kids won't sit down for anything when it has to do with the scriptures, but they love this, and so we watch this, and then they want to know what's the actual story like." So we go to the scriptures and then we read the scriptures. Or some people are like, they struggle with, like, someone said their kids have autism, and but for some reason when they watch my videos, they just sit and watch, and they calm, and they ask questions afterwards. And then it's like, "Oh, I think you actually like this, right?" So, yeah, I'll keep going. And then it got to the point where they asked about publishing. I went to the LDS PMA conference and I pitched it. Cedar Ford picked it up, and I thought, "Oh, I guess all that positive feedback has kept me going," because I do make these after work, right? Or like on the weekends or after hours. So this isn't something I'm getting paid to do. So that it's hearing all the comments from how people love it or how they affect it. People say, "Hey, I had the book on my coffee table. Our kids had a party." This was like for 8, 9-year-old kids. One of the kids who's not a member of the church saw the graphic novel on the table and picked it up and started reading it. And we're like, "Hey, we're gonna go play." And he's like, "Okay, I'll be right there." and he read the whole book while they were having card like games and cake and ice cream. And they said, "Yeah, this kid just read the whole book." And so, without knowing it, that kid read chapters 1 through 4 of the Book of Mormon, of First Nephi, and he enjoyed it. He loved it. Those are the kinds of stories that make me want to keep it up, right?
So, just so I am fully understanding, I'm curious because I know about the book that you're going to be publishing, the graphic novel with Cedar Fort. So, on YouTube, is it that you are are you reading? Are you showing like the illustrations that you've done, or what is like your YouTube channel?
So it's kind of, so when you make a movie, you storyboard out the movie first, and then you take those storyboards and you make an animatic, which is like you show the frame with voices and music, and then you kind of have a rough idea of what your show is going to look like and sound like. And so I kind of decided to take each of the panels and do kind of I've seen other people do it and they call it like an audio comic. And so it's the panels of the comic, and then again, because I can't pay anyone and I have 5 kids and it'd be hard to organize everything, I just do all the voices myself, and then I do I put sound effects and music and stuff, and, I've had people like it so much that they would donate money to the project, and they'd say, like, "I'm not trying to, like, influence you or anything, I just want you to keep going," and so I'd taken that money and purchased a subscription to a place that allows me to download sound effects libraries and music libraries, and then, like I said, it's gotten much better because people have responded and helped, and yeah.
That's awesome. That's incredible. And I'm curious how working on this project do you feel like has stretched or strengthened your own testimony?
It it has definitely strengthened my testimony. I've always read the Book of Mormon over and over and over again. Going through it this way has helped me love the people in it. I've always loved the story of Nephi, right? But trying to flesh out him and his brothers, it makes me love Laman and Lemuel more, right? Like, because they're not like I have to like I don't see them as like just these kids that really love their life, and now when their parents say it's time to move, they they really struggled with it because they never, for whatever reason, took the time to just pray and find out that this is true, this is good. And so it makes me love Mormon more for all the stuff that he had to go through. I can't imagine being married, trying to raise your child, trying to stay true to like the gospel while you're surrounded by this group of people that used to be righteous and now they're falling, and they're going to be completely wiped out, and it's still your job to lead. Mormon never had a chance to like decide what he wanted to do when he got older. He just had to be Captain Mormon. And I don't know, I feel like I can't wait to meet these people. And not that I did it before, but I guess I just try to really picture who they were, and I try to be as faithful as I can to who they were. 'Cause I don't think anyone is just pure evil, right? Like, for whatever reason, they make choices that gets them to a spot. But, like, anyway, I guess I try to be as faithful, as merciful as I can when I'm writing who they are and what they do. Yeah.
One of the things that's standing out to me is, that letter that you wrote Disney and when they had like encouraged you to take acting classes. I feel like before speaking to you, if I had thought about skill sets for an animator, acting would not have occurred to me. But in listening to you talk about like you are figuring out this, like you're making this more than a character on the page. You're figuring out their motivation, you're figuring out their persona, you're figuring out like what motivates this person and connecting with them on a deeper level and allowing people who are listening to do the same. And I wonder if that isn't what made part of, like, of course, your illustration is like the big thing, but part of what makes that have been so successful is your ability to capture those people, not just as like kind of flat characters from a page, but you're giving them depth and you're creating like people, like sophisticated people with a backstory and with like dreams and also flaws of their own.
Yeah, one of the things that you learn when writing, right, is or one of the things that we've learned is that or that I've learned is when you're writing like a villain, right, that you don't write them as a villain, right? You write them as like a villain never thinks of himself. Well, maybe they do, right? You write them in a manner that I think one writer said like they're making their case to God of why they should get into heaven, right? And so you're not writing them as like oh like they laugh every time they do something or something like that, but they're honestly they think what they're doing is right for whatever reason, but like where mom and dad say something and you all gather together against mom and dad because you don't like what they say. I feel like it's a little more complex than Lehigh says. It's like this family that's like slowly being torn apart because everyone has their agency to make their choices. And no matter how much you love them, no matter how much you love someone, you have to respect their agency. And if they make certain choices, and you know God lives and you want to do this and they make different choices, like you can't abandon your covenants just because you have a family member over here that doesn't see things the same way. So it's yeah, it's kind of like this really sad story.
Tell us what your YouTube channel is called.
Book of Mormon graphic novel.
So I'm curious, do you feel like have is it been difficult to find this balance between creating something very faithful and also accessible in our modern engaged way?
Yeah. Yeah, it has. It's I try to so I think in the handbook, the official handbook of the church, it says that when it comes to like God, the Father, or Jesus Christ, or the Holy Ghost, you're never supposed to change their words, right? Like if there's like a church production that they do, I think you'll see that they can change like Peter, it's what he says and kind of makes sense, make up dialogue for other people. But when it comes to the Savior, you just keep it you don't change the words. And so I try to follow that rule. I do try to create a real life sibling relationship among the brothers, but if I praise and the Lord speaks to him, I always keep it as direct as possible. And I never change the language. And then, yeah, a lot of people have talked about in Sunday school and stuff like that, oh, and they've made jokes in other versions of the Book of Mormon, like, hey, Zoram was going to be killed. And I think even in the Book of Mormon, one of the Zoramites say that, I'm a proud Zoramite who you're I'm a son of Zoram, descendant of Zoram, who your fathers forced into the wilderness, right? Like, and I feel like, faithfully speaking, right? Like Zoram, I think he felt the spirits. It wasn't just like he thought he was going to die, because I don't think Nephi had ever this told, and I'm sure having four men outside the walls of Jerusalem at night uh, is threatening, but like I feel like it was more than that for him to make to say like I feel like the Lord is working with Zoram so that when in the book, I talked about how like Ishmael had five daughters, right? One was for Zoram, and it wasn't like it was God was planning to ask Ishmael, who only had four daughters, and that Zoram was left out. Like Zoram wasn't like an afterthought. Zoram was part of the plan. And yeah, how the Razvan says there's no coincidences. I feel like I feel like that's the case, right? Like that Ishmael and his family, I've heard some people say, oh, they were related, so that's why they went down. That's why they agreed to do something so crazy. And I'm like, well, or they felt the spirit, right? Like, and that's why they went down. And so it's definitely, I'm trying to keep as much God in the story as possible and not try to make it so what other people would call like down to earth, where like, hey, and then God is just like an afterthought. Well, God isn't the afterthought. God is the whole reason for what happens in the Book of Mormon.
What is your hope when someone, a young person, reads this for the first time?
I hope that they would read the actual Book of Mormon to see how different it is, or like, so my daughter, for example, she started reading the Book of Mormon again after I had put out my graphic novel, and she said, "Hey, Dad, like I totally understand it now. It makes more sense." Like, and that's kind of what I hoped for. When I was younger, the Tennis Shoes Among the Nephites came out, right? The story where they go back and the young boy teams up with Teancum, and then he goes in and he kills Amalickiah in his tent. And I went and I read through that. I think it's chapter 51 of Alma, and I read the story and how it says he put in there that Teancum and his servant went into the tent of Amalickiah, and I was like, oh man, feel like totally Chris Heimerdinger totally married his story with the scriptures, and I just thought like I would like to do that. I mean, without bringing in like a character from our world or anything like that, but I felt like I wanted to like write something that when people read the scriptures, it's like it totally fits, and they can read the scriptures and they can read the graphic novel, and of course, mine has jokes in it. I hope that they do love reading the scriptures, and that when they read, they'll use their imagination to kind of connect the dots that you have the events in the scriptures, but all the stuff that happens in between that leads up to those events. I hope that they'll use their imaginations as they read the actual scriptures.
So I just listened to a podcast interview with John Bideway and Hank Smith, and they were interviewing Dallas Jenkins, who is the creator of The Chosen. And I feel like I heard him say in different words the exact same thing that you just did with the Bible, that his hope is that after portraying these people, that people will turn to their Bible with a new understanding and appreciation of the people that are in that book, not deviating, but just trying to add to. And I feel like that's exactly what I hear you say.
Yeah, it's not. I don't want to. I try not to add so much story that it becomes like my own story with the Book of Mormon people. I'm just doing my own story. It's like it's the story of the Book of Mormon, and so I know a lot of people have reached out and said, "Hey, why don't you give Lehi more of a backstory?" And I want, like, again, like I don't feel like what I'm saying or what I'm doing is scripture, but I do feel like God is happy with what I'm doing.
So, what do you feel like this experience has taught you about using your talents in service of doing something greater?
Yeah, it's, when I read or hear the quote by President Benson, flood the earth with the Book of Mormon, I feel like I'm helping with that a little bit, right? And sharing the Book of Mormon, I feel like I'm reaching a lot more people. It started off just for my kids, but as other people have found it, and I do get like a lot of crazy people, a lot of anti people, but I feel like for the most part that it's reaching people that say they have, like, certain struggles. I had this lady, she says she was, like, 60 years old. She had left the church, but she really loves watching my videos, and so I'm like, "Well, that's great," like, and so now I feel like, way back when I was deciding what to do with my life, I'd finished my mission, and I'd loved teaching the gospel so much that I had considered giving up art and just becoming like an institute teacher, because I was like, how could I keep teaching the gospel? And I just felt really strongly that I should not become an institute teacher. And I was like, why would the Lord not want me to teach his gospel? Like I don't get that. But like I feel like now I can use what I've learned becoming an artist and becoming like, working in the television film industry to share stories that reach people. Yeah. I feel like I definitely am serving in that way.
I feel like that's a really powerful moment where you're like, why wouldn't God want me to be an institute teacher? And like, why would he want me to focus on like drawing? Can you tell us a little bit more about that moment?
It's I won't use names. I was dating a girl who at the time was very nervous, I should say, about the idea of marrying someone who would become an artist, right? Because she actually had asked my bishop to tell me that I should not become an artist. When my bishop called me in and my bishop said, you speak 3 languages, why don't you become an FBI agent? Like I went home and I just felt like depressed. And by that time the internet was around. So I went online and I looked at the requirements for FBI agents and I was like, yeah, I mean, I meet them. And to be honest, like I think that'd be kind of cool to be an FBI agent, kind of like in the movies, right? But so I downloaded the form and I started filling it out. And then I thought, I just can't sign it. Like I just can't sign it. And I thought, well, I could go up there, work at the MTC, and then try to become an institute teacher, like by going to BYU or whatever. And I had a lot of mission companions or people that I know on my missions who said, "Hey, come up to BYU. They have a great art program." So I went up to the missionary training center. I interviewed. They said I did great. That I did amazing. Lived in El Paso, Texas at the time. I went back to El Paso and I called the following week to check on my status. And they said, "We have no record of you being here." And I was, what? I said, "My name is Pablo Smith. Like, that's not like a hard name to find." And they said, "Yeah, there's no record of you ever having come or interviewed or anything." And I was like, everything I tried, it felt like doors were just slamming shut. And I just felt like I walked around for about like a month, like fully depressed. And then Tarzan came out. And I saw the trailer. I was in the movies watching another movie, and the trailer for Tarzan came out, and the monster inside me just kinda like it came awake again, and I just thought like, "What am I doing? Like, this is forget this girl, right?" Like, I don't have to like, I know God asks us to get married, commands us to get married and stuff like that, but this just feels like this is what I wanna do with my life, and so I just thought like, "Alright, I'm just going to become an animator. That's what I'm going to do." I feel like this like every other avenue that I try seems to shut down on me. And it was scary. And it was especially, my senior year of college, Disney shut down all of their traditional animation departments and DreamWorks followed suit. And I was like at my senior year and I had studied traditional animation this whole time. And I was like, what is going on? I didn't know if I had made a big error in judgment. And, I feel like I said, it's been really hard, but as I work on this, as I work on the graphic novel and as I feel like it's actually making a difference in people's lives, like spiritually, right? That I feel like I finally understand why the Lord wanted me to be an artist. And not maybe not just to make the graphic novel, but like it's such a great experience that I don't think I would have had this working. I feel like if I worked at another job, I've always would have been like that's what I wanted to do and never have known. I think I would have always regretted it.
So, okay, with the exception of Tarzan and Little Mermaid, what is your favorite animated film of all time?
Uh, oh, that is an unanswerable question. It's always like a tie for me. I love Ratatouille, which is the Pixar film, and I love The Incredibles. Brad Bird, he's the director, the writer director, and then I also just I love Aladdin and I love Tarzan. I skipped school to see Aladdin. I I pretended to be sick, I pretended to throw up, and then when my mom went to work, I went to go see Aladdin. And, yeah,
So, if someone listening is starting to feel a nudge to use their talents in a more meaningful way or a faith centered way, but they're kind of unsure about where to start, or they might have doubts about if they're good enough, what would you say to that?
I would say I wouldn't try if you're going to try to develop the talent, I would dive into that talent. That's like, I'd say, as far as animation goes, it's hard to become an animator if you're a lot of like so this girl that I had been dating, she was like, "Well, why don't" her and the bishop were like, "You could always draw as go to school for something real," is what they said, and drawing could be like your small little, yeah, hobby. There's no way anyone who does animation as a hobby could get to work for a studio. Like, they could definitely have a YouTube channel for sure, right? Here's my hobby animation, and I've seen a lot of channels like that. But it doesn't reach worldwide necessarily, like, it doesn't, like, really impact. So I would say to someone, like, dive into the talent itself, like, really focus on it. And, if I had gone back and told myself, "Hey, the reason why God wants you to be an artist is to make a graphic novel of the Book of Mormon," I think I would have started trying to do it immediately without having learned all this stuff first, and then being able to bring all of this stuff into the graphic novel. Like, I feel like I would have tried it from the beginning and it would have failed. And so I feel like just really, really learning your craft, whatever that talent might be, is important. But the art of animation is like actually like a lot of really, really hard work. And so when it came time to do the work, like to do the blood, sweat, and tears part, it wasn't just like the one drawing of Bugs Bunny and just like with like saying something really funny. Like it wasn't just like the laugh. Like it took hours and weeks and months and years of practice. And so if you're not willing to devote that time to it, then you'll never get to that level of quality, right? And if you're never at that level of quality, you'll never have the same impact that what you're watching has on you. So it's something that you really totally have to devote, not just like a few hours here and there. Like you really do have to devote your life to it. And if you're not fully learning the stuff that is involved with your craft, it will always be at the level where people will tell you, yeah, I mean, it's not really doing anything much, right? So, you should have a fallback. And I think I'm not saying don't have a fallback. Okay. It's just I think, in the Bible where they're making the tabernacle and they call that God specifically names the artists, the people who he wants working on the tabernacle, on crafting the ark and the cherubs and stuff. Like he gives specific names, and he's given those people that talent, right? Like to show people that this was holy, this was different, this was reverent. And I think it's important to understand that God needs artists as much as he needs. I just love those chapters when God calls out specific artists to create stuff that he needs done. Like they're working on his tabernacle, right? His temple. And I just think it's just as important, and to make sure that God is with you as you go through and do these things. That I've seen people that go into the film industry world, and they get lost in the art and kind of leave behind God. And so I think it's like this it's this like really unique path that you have to like follow your heart, but also never leave following God behind.
But I love that, and I feel like that's such an important message. Pablo, where can people find you? How can we support you?
So I do have a website called Book of Mormon graphicnovels.org. You can go there. The YouTube channel is Book of Mormon Graphic Novel. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And I have to say, I'm horrible at social media and I don't post a lot. I spend most of my time just working on the graphic novel. I'm not trying to like become an influencer or anything like that. These are just ways to reach people with the graphic novel. And if you guys really like it, like I said, the Cedar Fort will be publishing it volume 1 in September. It'll be available for purchase. And if this goes well, then they'll take the rest of my books, and that'll definitely give me more incentive to keep going.
Pablo, this has been so wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having.
Thank you for being a part of this story. Thank you for walking with me. Thank you for believing that vision paired with faith can change lives, including our own. Until next time, whenever that may be, keep creating, keep listening, and keep trusting the God who called you in the first place. I'm Cassidy Beck.